All right, so you're getting numbers, you're keeping them, you're even mass texting if they go dead, that kind of stuff. The question now is, how do you manage dozens or even hundreds of phone numbers at any given time? Well, the first step is make sure you save their number in your phone immediately. We talked about getting your number in her phone. Possibly equally as important, getting her number in your phone so you know which girl it is. I've had nights where I went out and got 20 different girls' phone numbers, and it was a disaster because I didn't save them. Where I was so busy, like I'd go from one girl, like, oh, this girl's hot too, and I'd go talk to her, and they'd do like 3 or 4 of those in a row. I'd have 3 or 4 numbers. I have no idea which number is from which girl anymore. Or at the end, I'm like, okay, so this girl was this interaction, this girl I saved here, and this girl, right? It's massively confusing, and it's almost impossible to text them properly, or when the first text I told you about, like calling back something specific about the interaction, you can't even remember anything specific about the interaction because you don't remember what girl it is. So, very, very important. Save her number in your phone as well. Get that name in there with it, and ideally I will make some kind of a note. Okay, maybe a note on like ballet girl, or like cute girl in red dress, or works at XYZ place. Whatever it is, whatever reminds me of who she is in my head, so that when it comes time to text her the next day, I actually remember the interaction. There's something to go on. All right. Also, especially if you're keeping track of like numbers over a long period of time, you might even want to put where you met them, where they're from, that kind of stuff. Like put it like an extensive thing. Take that extra like 20 seconds. I mean, you spent 5, 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 40 minutes getting the number. Take that extra 10 seconds to write down a couple notes so you know who it is. Another good thing you can do along these lines, which also helps you with texting later, is take a picture of you and the girl together. That way you're going to visually remember her, remember who she is. That will help massively as well. But one way or another, the first step to effective management of phone numbers is to get the number in your phone with some kind of note or picture so you actually remember it, right? There are even like, I think there are a couple apps, I've never actually used them, but a couple apps that guys I know have where like literally while you're taking the number, it's a little overlay and it'll like you point it at you and the girl and it'll take a picture. You can do something like that if you want to. Not really necessary. You should be able to take the picture, like the vibe should be good enough, and also your notes should be good enough regardless. But if you really want to go to that level, you can even do that. The key thing though is get her saved in your phone in a way that you will remember. All right, quick note on labels and descriptions. I just said, get her number in your phone in a way that you can remember. Here's a couple different things that I'll put in my labels and descriptions just so I know who they are. And obviously you want to cater to what your particular tastes are and what works for you, but these are some suggestions. One thing, if a girl's particularly hot, I will write that down. I'll write down hot as part of the description or something like that, right? What does that tell me? It tells me when the number's dead or seeming dead or not going as well that I actually care enough to put in an effort with it, right? I care enough to put in a little more effort. It also tells me that maybe when it does, when 6 months down the road I'm making plans or something and I have a couple different girls hitting me up the same day, that maybe I want to favor the ones that say hot on them as opposed to the ones that are just like so-so, okay? Other thing is a lot of times I'll mention how the interaction went. Like maybe I'll put like quick number as the label, or I'll put like near pull or pull LMR or something like that, right? So I remember what girl it specifically is. That can be very, very useful. Also, I mentioned where you met her is very useful. Also, I travel a lot. So a lot of times I'll put like, especially like say maybe I meet a girl in New York and she's from LA, I'm traveling, I'll put LA met in New York, right? Or New York lives LA or something like that. So I know what I'm actually dealing with, and I know when I get to a different city, I can actually meet up with her, right? There was a situation where there was a girl I hooked up with in Vegas one time, and she happened to live in Phoenix, and I happened to have that in my description, right? Like, I think I just put like Arizona or something like that. But then I happened to be in Scottsdale, and I was thumbing through my phone, I saw her number, I'm like, wait, where in Arizona are you from? She's like, Phoenix. I'm like, holy shit, you're right down the street from me. We met up, we had sex. Had I not remembered where she was from, it would have never actually happened, okay? Very important to keep organized, keep on top of those kind of things. If you really want to, especially if you go to the same clubs a lot, you might even put the date, right? Put like what date you met them so that you can kind of keep a rough chronology of what's going on. Also, by the way, when you're texting them, that first text should have the date on it, so you have that timestamp. But it's a lot easier if you can just like scroll through and kind of gauge it from that. Also, if you get ongoing notes, by all means, feel free to add those in as well. Okay, so anything else you think might be useful, things you can tease them on, are very, very useful, right? If there was a nickname you called her, that's very, very useful. Anything like that. Also, if when you text to get your number in her phone or text yourself from her phone to get the number in, if you can have some kind of cute little thing that's a callback, that's also a good thing to help you remember it too. So any and all of those kind of labels, use them, use mine, create your own. The point is, use labels, they're very, very helpful. Next tip for managing multiple numbers. Use drafts, okay? This is Android specific. It works a little bit on the iPhone, but it's better on Android. Which is, if you're on Android, most Android operating systems, every one I've ever used, if you enter text that you plan to send the girl and then just leave it and hit the back button, it will leave that text in there as entered, and it will also take that, that conversational thread to the top of your conversation list. So it's a great reminder. Say, for example, if you think you're going to write something but you're not sure about it, it's a great way to like have it in there as a draft. You don't have to send it right then and there, but next time you come to your message, it's going to remind you to actually hit that girl back. So that can be very, very useful. Or say, for example, you happen to get the text message at a weird random time. Like you happen to like pick up your phone at 2 a.m., you've been busy all evening or whatever, and then you don't want to message the girl back at 2 a.m. because that'd be weird and it's kind of pointless, right? Why text when she can't respond to you? But you want to text her the next day. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll write the draft, and then again, it sends it back to the top, because otherwise you don't see it as an unread message and it might fall through the cracks. And so often, like one of my biggest issues in text personally, because I get so many numbers, is girls falling through the cracks. So using that draft functionality is very, very, very useful. I believe there are also things you can do to schedule texts. There are apps you can use for that. So if you want to use that, that can serve sort of the drafting purpose as well. I still like the drafts actually better though, because it allows you to revisit them. You can save drafts on iPhone as well, but the problem with that is it doesn't necessarily move them to the top of the queue, right? So you have it saved and you have the message you're going to send, so you can go back and check the message, but you don't get that reminder to actually send it. So you might need to make a note for yourself somewhere else in that case. But on Android in particular, use the drafts function. It's massively, massively helpful for keeping on top of your texting. So all this organizational stuff aside, probably the most useful thing you can do to work massive volume of numbers is identify and highlight your best leads. Know what maybe like your top 10 prospects are at most and work them very hard. Because again, you're constantly getting new numbers as well, all right? So most numbers that you get, if you're gonna get them out, if it's a good set, or even just a mediocre set to be fair, but especially if it's a good set, you'll get them out within a week. If you haven't got the girl out within a week, the odds of you actually getting her out go massively, massively down. So again, we talked about texting right away while you're still fresh in her mind, and following up and trying to make the plans within the first few days or a week, right? So keep the girls on your like fresh, they're responding, it's positive list for that period of time. At that point, if you really haven't gotten them out, if they're very flaky, that kind of stuff, unless you have a very specific reason to keep them fresh, like, you know, they really like you but they're out of town or whatever, a lot of times then it's time to demote them to the practice list and that kind of stuff. And again, you could even alter the notes, be like, you know, flaked on this, or met on this date, now practice only, whatever you want to put in. But the point is, demote them in your mind and really focus on the fresh, good leads. That's how you're going to work out the best. Now, obviously, if there's one particular girl that was so amazing, by all means, work her a little bit harder. But that's not going to be difficult because you're going to remember that anyway, right? If you remember her enough that you care to do that, then you have no organizational problem as is. The problem with organization is when you start forgetting the girls, right? And so when you notice that you're starting to forget them, or you notice you're starting to get overloaded, conscientiously kind of demote some of them so that you can handle the ones you're getting. If you find you're spending all your day texting girls, I mean, it's kind of nice. It's kind of validating. Like, oh shit, new girl texted me. Oh, new girl texted me. It feels good. But yeah, when you're starting to get to that level of confusion, conscientiously demote some of the girls and really focus on your warmest leads.